The rain had a way of making the city feel crueler than usual, and that morning, it felt as if the sky itself had decided to pass judgment. Daniel Carter stood outside the glass tower, his shoulders slumped, his thin jacket soaked through, clutching a cardboard box with his entire working life stuffed inside it. Security had escorted him out moments ago, and the last words he heard still echoed in his head like a verdict. Pack up, single dad. We don't run charities here. Fired. Just like that. No warning, no mercy, and no idea how he was supposed to go home and look into his little daughter's eyes. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what it truly means to be human, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel had never imagined his life would shrink into a cardboard box. Once, he had been proud of his job as a senior maintenance supervisor in one of the most powerful tech empires in the country, owned by billionaire Victor Harrington. Daniel wasn't famous, wasn't flashy, but he was dependable. He showed up early, stayed late, and fixed problems others ignored. After his wife Emily passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden illness, his life became a careful balancing act between earning a living and raising his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Every morning he braided Lily's hair with clumsy fingers, packed her lunch with handwritten notes, and promised her he would always be there. That promise weighed heavily on him now, as he walked away from the building, his shoes splashing through puddles, his heart heavier than the storm clouds above. The firing had been brutal in its simplicity. A minor equipment failure had delayed a high-profile board meeting, and Victor Harrington, known across the industry for his sharp suits and even sharper temper, wanted someone to blame. Daniel had tried to explain that the outdated system needed replacement, that he had filed reports for months, but none of that mattered. To Victor, Daniel was just another employee, replaceable, forgettable. The word single dad had been thrown like an insult, as if responsibility were a weakness rather than proof of strength. That evening Daniel sat on the edge of his small apartment couch, watching Lily color at the coffee table. She hummed softly, unaware of the storm raging inside her father. The apartment was modest, but it was filled with warmth. Photos of Emily smiling, Lily's school drawings taped to the fridge, and a sense of love that money could never buy. Daniel forced a smile as Lily looked up and asked why he was home early. He told her he just wanted extra time with her, and in that moment, he realized how fragile everything was. Rent was due. School fees were coming. Hope felt like a thin thread stretched to its limit. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Daniel searched for work relentlessly, sending out applications late into the night after Lily fell asleep. Rejections came quickly, some polite, some cold, many never arriving at all. Word traveled fast in corporate circles, and being fired by Victor Harrington carried an unspoken stain. Still, Daniel refused to break. Every morning he woke Lily with a gentle kiss, made her breakfast, and reminded himself that giving up was not an option. One afternoon, a letter arrived unexpectedly. It bore the sleek logo of Harrington Enterprises. Daniel's hands trembled as he opened it, expecting a legal notice or some final insult. Instead, it was a summons, an invitation to return to the tower for a formal review regarding the incident. Confusion mixed with anger, but desperation pushed him forward. He put on his only suit, slightly worn but neatly pressed, and kissed Lily goodbye, promising her he'd bring good news. The boardroom was colder than he remembered, all glass and steel, with the city sprawled beneath like a kingdom. Victor Harrington sat at the head of the table, surrounded by executives who looked through Daniel rather than at him. As Daniel stood there, small and alone in that vast room, something inside him shifted. Fear gave way to clarity. When Victor finally spoke, questioning Daniel's competence and loyalty, Daniel listened quietly, his jaw tight. And then, for the first time since his firing, Daniel spoke. Not with anger, but with quiet, unwavering honesty. He talked about responsibility, about fixing problems before they became disasters, about the value of people who cared more about outcomes than applause. And then he asked a single question, his voice steady despite the weight behind it. He asked Victor if he truly believed that leadership meant discarding people at their most vulnerable, or if it meant standing behind the systems and the people who kept the empire running. He asked whether success built on fear could ever be called real success. The room fell silent. Executives shifted uncomfortably. Victor Harrington, a man who had faced markets, lawsuits, and rivals without blinking, found himself unable to answer. For the first time, the billionaire looked less like a titan and more like a man confronted with a mirror he had avoided for years. Daniel didn't wait for applause or approval. He simply nodded, thanked them for their time, and walked out, his heart pounding but strangely light. What Daniel didn't know was that his words lingered. Over the following weeks, quiet changes began within Harrington Enterprises. Policies were reviewed, equipment upgrades were approved, and one morning Daniel received a call, not with an apology, but with an offer. A new role, better pay, real authority to make the changes he had always advocated for. Daniel declined at first, not out of pride, but out of principle. Only after assurances that the culture would truly change did he accept, knowing he could make a difference for others like him. Life didn't magically become perfect, but it became steadier. Daniel returned home each evening with renewed purpose, his shoulders lighter, his smile more genuine. Lily noticed. She noticed the laughter returning, the bedtime stories filled with warmth instead of worry, and somewhere in a glass tower overlooking the city, Victor Harrington found himself thinking often of the single dad he had once dismissed so easily, realizing that true wealth had nothing to do with numbers on a screen. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own struggles or gave you hope during a hard season, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and let us know in the comments how it made you feel. And before you go, comment below with a single word that describes what this story meant to you. Because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths, and sometimes one honest question is powerful enough to change everything.